Hello everyone. In this video we are going to see the workflow of change document normal change. So in this video we are going to see the workflow of a normal change document. So let's start. First of all, let's see what is a normal change document and when do we create a normal change document. A normal change is an implementation of request for change, that is a new functionality, a new feature in the existing functionality, or an corrective activity for a minor defect in existing functionality. Okay, so in all of these cases we create a normal change. This change document is used to facilitate the development, testing and approval of the change while aligning the changes with an overall release strategy for the landscape and productive systems. So one thing to note is normal changes are one of the change documents that are created in most numbers, because all such requirements that are a new functionality or a correction to an existing functionality which is not a very emergency kind of change, that will always come under a normal change, and if that needs to be transported from one system to another, it will be assigned in a normal change only. That is why normal change is one of the most important kind of change documents. And let's see the workflow of a normal change documents now. So again, before moving forward, we have taken only the standard statuses provided by SAP that will come under the standard transaction type, which is SMMJ for normal change. Okay, so you can see there can be a different statuses in between them. There can be statuses less than these 10 statuses, there can be statuses more than these 10 statuses, because customization for these statuses are possible in change request management in SAP Solution Manager. So let's start with the workflow. So normal change in status created. Initially, the status of a normal change document is created. The change manager evaluates the planned development and can either initiate this development or cancel the change document altogether. So we have seen that previously the request for change was set to development, and once the request for change is set to development, it is after that the workflow of normal change starts. So initially the normal change will be in status created. The next status is normal change in development status. The developer who heads the team of developers sets the status to in development. The developer creates the transport request in the development system via the transport management assignment block. So when the status in development, the developer will perform the development part, and then the changes will be stored into the transport request. Again, the next status is normal change in the status to be tested. When the features have been implemented, the developers release their task in the transport request. Developer or IT operator then saves the change documents and the status of the change document changed to be tested. In this status, transport of copies are generated, that is a transport containing the changes of the original transport in a quality environment. If the test reveals that there is a need of correction, the change manager or tester can send the change document again back to the previous status, which is in development. Okay, so the main concept here comes of the transport of copies, which means that the original transport request will not come into the testing system or the quality system, but instead a transport of copy of that transport request will come into the quality system, and based on that transport of copy, the tester will perform the testing. Once this is done, the next status is successfully tested. If the tester suggests that the changes are successful in quality environment, they can change the status of a change document to successfully tested. The original transport request will come into the import queue of the quality system. A background job runs in the background with a specific time interval to import the existing TR into the quality system. So once the status is successfully tested, this means that the tester has done the testing and the testing is successful. Therefore, the tester has changed the status to successfully tested. If the testing was not successful, the tester would change the status back to in development. So since the testing is successful, the status is successfully tested now. Now at this point of time, the original transport request will come into the import queue, and it will not directly come into the next system, but it will come into the import queue, and then from the import queue to the actual system, it will come via background job. So background job is set up for bringing the main transport request from development system to the quality system. The next is after successful testing, there are two operations to proceed. The change manager sets the production status without preliminary input. The tester requests the preliminary input of normal change. So there are two ways to proceed. So if you need to proceed without the request of preliminary import, then there is a way. Other way is via moving via preliminary import statuses. Now preliminary import is a status which is used for importing the normal changes into production on the urgent basis. So let's see normal change status imported into production. The IT operator triggers the import manually from the task list. He navigates to the task list and triggers the import to the production system. The IT operator can import a TR to the production system manually or can schedule a job. He can choose the time for scheduling of this job. So there are two ways for importing this transport request into the production system, either immediately or any other specific time for weekly, monthly, quarterly or different type of release date for the project. Accordingly, the date can be set for importing the transport request into the production system. Normal change status preliminary import requested. So let's see the different preliminary import statuses that we have. The tester requests the preliminary import. The status of the normal change proceeds to preliminary import requested. So it is the duty of the tester to request the preliminary import. The next status is testing for preliminary import. The change manager approves the preliminary import. The transport request for the normal change is automatically imported into the assigned follow-on system. If the import was successful, the status of the normal change proceeds to testing for preliminary import. So the change manager will approve the preliminary import request. The next status is tested for production import. After successfully testing, the tester confirms the successful test. The transport request of the normal change is automatically imported into the next system in the landscape. When the transport request is in the import queue of the production system, the normal change proceeds to the status tested for production import. Next status is authorized for import. When the normal change is in the status tested for production import, the change manager can authorize the transport request for importing into production. The status will then proceed to authorize for import. Once the transport has moved to the production system, the change manager could move the status of the change document to import it to production. And then we have one more status, which is withdrawn. In any of the status of the change manager feels that the change document for the ongoing change is no longer required, the change manager has the authority to withdraw the normal change. So at that point of time, this withdrawn status will come into play. So these all were the different status of normal change document. Now we are going to see the entire workflow. So you can see that in this workflow there are 5 different roles, which is change manager, developer, tester, IT operator and the background job, which are performing all the operations. So let's see one by one. Approve request for change and classify as normal change. This will be done by change manager. Then once the normal change document is created, it is the duty of developer to set the status to in development, and then the developer will execute the changes and release the tasks and pass the changes to testing. Once the changes are passed to testing, then creating, releasing and importing of transport of copies will happen at the back end. Then the role of tester will come into play. The tester will perform the testing, and if the testing is not successful, the tester will send it back to the development, and again the development cycle will activate. And if the test is successful, then the tester will confirm the successful test, and the tester will change the status to confirm successfully tested status. Once the status is successfully tested, then the IT operator will trigger the import of original transports. Once the IT operator will trigger it, the import of original transport will happen automatically from the backend, and then the change manager will switch the maintenance phase to test phase. Then the perform scenario test will be performed by tester, and switching the maintenance phase to go live back again will be done by change manager. After that, triggering the import of original transports will be done by the IT operator. Triggering the import to the next system, this will be done by IT operator, and once it is triggered, the transport request will be imported onto the next system by the backend. Okay, so once this is done, in the status imported into production will be set by IT operator, and then the maintenance phase will be switched back to development with release. So this will also be done by IT operator. So this was the entire workflow of normal change. Normal change is the most widely used change documents amongst all the change documents, because it has different concepts like transport of copies. Also, if there is any transport request or a change request which is not a emergency change request, then it should be assigned under normal change. So we have this table which describes different persons responsible for different actions in display. So developer will set the status to in development, tester will be setting the status to be tested, tester will perform the work when the status is to be tested, and then tester or change manager collectively will perform the the task when the status is successfully tested. And then preliminary import requested, the change manager will approve the preliminary import request, tester will request the testing for preliminary import, change manager again will set it to test for production import, and then change manager will again set it to authorized for import. Once this is done, IT operator or change manager can set it to import into production. And then if between all of these statuses, if there is a need to withdraw the change document, it will be done by change manager. So this was the workflow of normal change. We have seen many different concepts like transport of copies and the TR import. TR means transport request, import from one system to the next system in the pipeline. And some of the tasks we can see that were performed by background jobs, some of them were performed automatically by the backend systems. So all this was the workflow of a normal change, and I hope you have got some understanding from this video, and thanks for watching.